Well, hello once again, and thank you for joining me on the Waters and Stanton video channel. My name's Peter Waters, and my ham radio call sign is Golf 3 Oscar Juliet Victor. I have covered line isolators in the past, but I'm still getting inquiries about line isolators and whether you need one and how they work, etc. So I thought I'd give you an update on line isolators because it is something which not only do I get questions on, but it's quite an important item these days. Let me first of all explain why you might need a line isolator. If you're using an HF transceiver connected by coax cable to your antenna, which is probably one of the most commonest setups, you're going to get some RF coming back into the shack, and I'll explain that in a bit. So what can this actually do? Well, one of the things that it can do, it can actually give you incorrect VSWR readings. If you've got an external VSWR meter, the RF flowing down the side of the coax, we call it common mode currents, and I'll come back to that in a minute. The RF flowing down the outside of the coax can upset the VSWR meter such that it doesn't give a true reading. And if you're using a VNA or a antenna analyzer, it's highly likely that what you see on the screen in terms of the VSWR trace will not be quite right, and it will cause some problems. And it can cause all sorts of problems if you're adjusting antennas. And it's the same if you're operating mobile, particularly mobile actually. If you've got RF currents flowing down the outside of the coax and you don't take any precautions, it can cause all sorts of problems when you're adjusting the mobile antenna. It's one moment it's resonant at one point, and then you do something else, you move the coax around and the resonance goes all over the place. So it can cause quite serious problems in trying to make sense of VSWR readings. It can also be the source of noise because the outside of the coax will act as an aerial. The outside of the coax is basically a long wire aerial, and that will conduct noise down the coax, and that can manifest itself in increased noise levels in the receiver. So another reason for having a line isolator, it could cut down your noise. You can also get RF in the shack which will actually manifest itself in distortion on the audio line. That's not so uncommon these days, particularly as you start to run higher power. And once you get RF into the audio stages, which is picked up through the microphone or any other lead, it can cause distortion, and you get all sorts of weird things happening on the transmitted signal. And you might think, well, what is happening? Has the transmitter gone wrong? No, it's not. It's RF getting into the audio line. And you can get some other strange things happening in the shack. Once you get RF in the shack, it can wander all over the place and cause all sorts of unusual problems and head scratching problems that you can't resolve. So in general terms, you really should use a line isolator. And in fact, I always use a line isolator in the shack because it cleans everything up and it overcomes these problems that may cause you to scratch your head and think, well, this is not making sense. Let me explain how common mode currents work and why you would need to address the problem. Imagine this is a piece of coax cable, a rather thick piece of coax cable. Cable like this would cost a fortune. Anyway, this is a magnified view of coax cable. Inside there is a single piece of cable that goes to the center pin of your PL259 plug. This is the braiding, the outer braiding, the metal braiding that surrounds that center conductor with some insulation material. Now, you have to remember that radio frequency current or energy travels on the surface of the conductor. So we connect this coax to our transceiver and the other end to the antenna. Energy travels up the coax through the center conductor and also travels to and fro on the braiding, on the inside of the braiding. Remember that RF energy travels on the surface of a conductor. So there's energy travelling on the surface of that braiding there and also energy travelling up the centre conductor. But when we connect this antenna, or this coax rather, to the antenna, we also get RF energy travelling on the outside of the braiding. Now that energy on the outside of the braiding is totally different to the energy on the inside of the braiding. Well, I say it's different. What we can do is we can allow the energy on the inside of the braiding to travel to the antenna and back down again. But what we want to do is to block off the energy on the outside of the coax, because that's the bit that causes the problem. And we do that by winding the coax cable around a ferrite core for a few turns. That means to say that we've blocked off the energy on the outside of the sheathing from reaching your transceiver, but we've allowed the energy on the inside of the coax to freely travel to and fro from your transceiver. So that's the reason why we need to address what we call common mode currents. We will need to block the current on the outside, but allow the current on the inside. And the reason that we are able to do that is because RF energy travels on the surface. It travels on the surface, this side of the braiding, and on the inside of the braiding. Now you can very easily make your own line isolator. One method is to just coil up a load of coax. The problem with that is that it does become rather frequency sensitive, and if you make a coil of coax on the floor or wherever, it's going to be resonant at some point, and it'll peak at that particular resonance, but it won't really cover the whole spectrum. Far better to use a ferrite core. Now, I've always found that I use 240-43 mix ferrite cores. I'll just show you one here where I've done a winding on the core. The winding is not super critical. I would say get 10 or 12 turns if you can on the core, and that seems to cover the basic spectrum from 80 meters through to 10 meters or 6 meters, and I've never found a problem with that. Now, if you're running high power, obviously, if you're using something like RG8, you can't get many turns around, but there's no reason why you can't use UR43 coax cable, because that's thinner and it will still handle quite easily 500 or 600 watts, provided you use reasonable quality coax. And the loss on that short length of coax winding round the core is really, you can't even measure it. So don't be frightened of using a thinner coax for, even if we're running high power, for the line isolator. My linear will produce 700 watts output, and I've been using RG58 for, I don't know, 10 years or so, no problem at all. So don't worry about using the thinner coax. Now, here's a little tip. How do you know whether you've got a serious problem with RF currents on the outside of the coax? Well, there's a way that you can test this. If you've got an antenna analyzer or a VNA or something like that, which draws a graph of the VSWR curve, what you need to do is to connect that VNA or antenna analyzer to your coax, the bit of coax that you'd normally connect to your transceiver. Do a test, and then hold fairly firmly the actual PL259 or BNC plug that's on the end of that coax. Hold that very firmly in your hand, and then do another test and see whether that curve changes. If that curve changes, you've got quite a serious potential problem with RF on the outside of the coax. I've set the antenna analyzer up, and I'm going to do a scan, and I'm not going to touch the outside of the coax. This is just a scan of the analyzer connected to the coax. And I want you to remember this shape of this waveform. That's the analyzer directly connected to the coax. Now, if I touch the coax now, see how the waveform has changed completely. That's because by touching this, I'm killing a lot of the RF common mode current. Take that away, do it again. We've got a completely different display. It's particularly useful to do this test if you've got a mobile HF installation. Grab the coax plug where it goes into the VNA or goes into your analyzer, and just see whether there's a change in the VSWR value or curve. See how it goes. You can actually do that also, although it's not quite so sensitive. You can do it with an ordinary VSWR meter. Run low power, 3 or 4 watts up the coax, and then grab the coax as it goes into the VSWR meter on the antenna side, and see if that VSWR changes or not. If it changes, you've got quite a serious potential problem, and certainly you will want a line isolator. Another test you can do is to do a VNA or zoom analyzer test, or even a VSWR test on a meter. Do a test on that, see what value of VSWR you get, and then put in line an extra bit of coax, say 10 or 12 feet of coax. If you've got a patch lead line about, put that in line and see if the VSWR changes. If the VSWR changes, then you potentially have got a problem with the RF currents on the outside of the coax. So they're sort of simple tests you can make. But above all, I would say that a good practice is to always use a line isolator. The reason is that I've already covered, but the other reason is that you can get some strange problems in the shack with RF, problems that you think, well, this doesn't make sense. I mean, I had a problem recently when I was doing some work with a mobile installation, and the antenna resonance was all over the place. And if I moved the coax cable coming, I had a mag mount on the car, and if I moved the coax cable around, the resonance was changing, and I immediately realised, of course, that it was common mode currents on the outside of the coax. Put a line isolator just before the coax goes into the transceiver. Everything made sense. Then I could adjust the antenna. It all made sense. So there's an example where you could say, you could spend perhaps an hour or a couple of hours think, this is not making sense. Why is the antenna resonance changing? And that's one of the reasons. There we are. So I hope that's cleared up the various questions that occasionally I get asked. Yes, you do need a line isolator. You may not notice the difference, but it may cure some problems that otherwise would have occurred. The other thing is, if you've got an auto ATU, RF currents on the outside of the coax can cause the ATU to struggle to get a match. So if you've got an auto ATU, whether it's an external one or an internal one that's struggling, and it's not able to tune the antenna or match the antenna, then try a line isolator. You may find that will overcome the problem. I've had that several times recently, where the internal ATU of the transceiver was struggling on a particular band. Put a line isolator in, and it works. So there we are. In the meantime, thank you for your support on this channel. It's much appreciated. You take care. I look forward to seeing you, as usual, in the next video. Bye for now.